Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's riding shotgun? It's my main man Reggie. What's up, Reg?
Kenny J, what's up, man?
Well, I'm good overall.
Yeah,
But you know the bubble finally popped, right?
the bubble, the
Our
bubble finally
four
popped.
game win streak finally came to an end. But we'll get to that in a minute. But life is good. Life is good, my man.
Life is good. Well, hey, man, I want to first apologize to our listeners here. I don't have all my equipment, so if the sound sounds a little bit off, I apologize for everyone as I don't have all of my equipment here, but I am glad to be back. Obviously we've been out about a week now, the past couple of 2 or 3 episodes of our podcast. And as I had mentioned prior to leaving that I wouldn't be here, had some personal business to attend to within my family. And I want to just kind of give a quick shout out, man, to all of the folks that have reached out and sent their condolences and things of that nature. It is very much appreciated and didn't go unnoticed, and I appreciate it. But I do want to take the opportunity, man, to say a special thanks to a couple of guys, Mr. John Jeffries and Tony Shivers, some of our listeners here on our podcast. First of all, we do appreciate you guys tuning in to us, and two gentlemen that I don't know personally to reach out on the side and to talk to me personally. And man, let me tell you, I really, really appreciate it. It's very touching to me, and I appreciate that. But that being said, I want to thank everybody that reached out to me while I was gone. But we're back, and I'm glad to be back and back with my friends and back to do this podcast for you guys. So thank you.
Yeah. It's a funny world we live in with this podcast and social media. And we're small fish, right? We're little fish in the big ocean. And I will say, a couple people when I was tailgating at the game against Cleveland, that they were asking about you. I was like, oh, uh I was like, yes, I'm just here by myself. And they were like, yeah, I saw, Reggie was out and taking care of family matters or whatever, and they were giving well wishes to you as well. So a lot of these people that we even tailgate through, we know them through social media,
Yeah,
whether
absolutely.
it's through our podcast or whether it's just through Twitter of following each other and following the Commanders. It's a it's a it's not a bad world for us, but it's a kind of an odd uh friendship
Yeah.
camaraderie that we have.
Yeah,
But
we certainly met some awesome people, man,
yeah,
through this platform, through I think through podcasting and also through social media, and some great people that we've met, man, that we would not have normally been able to meet and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
but with that said, man, we had our game of the week.
yeah,
It was for some, it was a measuring stick. For others, it was just another game. I'm not going to lie and say that it wasn't a measuring stick for me. It wasn't the end of the world game whether we won or lost that game, but I want to see where we stood against some of the elite in the league.
yep,
And I got to say that, man, I walked away from this game um, disappointed that we lost, but I didn't walk away from this game feeling defeated the way we probably would have in years past. And so with that, man, I am happy with the direction that this team is going in and the team that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn has assembled thus far. There's still some work to be done. That was highlighted
yeah,
by the
yeah,
performance today on the defensive side of the ball. Um, but I have every confidence and the faith that they will get that right. We've all said it. There was no way that they could fix everything in one off season. They've done a hell of a job in one off season. So I'm looking forward to see what they're able to do in a second off season. And I think the
right.
defense would be at the top of the list of things that they would be paying attention to in the off season.
Yeah, I don't disagree. You know, losing always stings a little bit, but this was one game that probably stung the least, I'll say, in the last couple years. Baltimore was the better team today. We'll see. If we met them at the end of the season, who knows? Maybe they're turning their team around. They have a good team, and maybe Washington will continue to grow and excel and gelling with each other. And Washington still overall played a solid game. The defense, gave up some yards and some penalties that hurt, but it was still a game. I think it really was a measuring stick. Win or lose, it was a measuring stick, and Washington kind of got behind, and it felt like the whole game they were trying to hang on, trying to keep up with Baltimore, and for the most part, they did a decent job. It was just Baltimore was just a little more efficient. They they slowed us down as the first team in 5 weeks that has slowed our offense down. And then defensively, I know our defense needs to grow and get better, but Baltimore's been doing this to a lot of teams this year. They've been putting up a lot of yards and a lot of points. I know Washington, I think, was number one in offense. Baltimore
Yes.
was right behind us.
Number two.
And
Number two.
so again, they didn't they were efficient, but it didn't feel like they were just clobbering us per se. It was just it almost felt like we couldn't make that one play here or there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny that, with the game against Cleveland, we got off to a slow start, and then it seemed like the offense found their footing, and then once they were able to get that going, they pulled away. This game started out very much the same way. It was like the offense was kind of struggling, trying to find their footing, but as the game went on, it was as if they were never able to quite get in a good offensive flow. I don't know what that reason was. I don't know if it was just we truly missed B-Rob. I don't know if it was probably one of the best defenses outside of probably the Tampa Bay game in week 1 that we played against. And to your point, they've been doing this a while. And so defensively, they're just a good defense that was able to disrupt our offensive flow. It was one of them things where I can also say, with the exception of week 1, it was the first game where Jayden looked somewhat like a rookie quarterback. I mean, it didn't look like, to me, the smooth flowing, just can make a play, get a first down whenever I want to. He looked a little out of sorts, a little bit. I'm not going to say he was rattled, but he looked like a guy in his first year. Because against the Giants, Cincinnati, the Cardinals, and Cleveland, he looked fine. But against Tampa, you could tell he looked like it was a rookie. And today was probably the second time all season where, to me, he looked a little bit like a rookie quarterback. That being said, he still put up a damn good stat line, considering he didn't really have a good, efficient running game to go against one of the league's top defenses, right? And but nonetheless, we said it when we was watching the game. In years past, that game would have essentially been over at halftime.
Right.
And yet here we were, we lost this game by 7 points. If our defense do a better job defensively on Zay Flowers, if our defense doesn't give up some of the blown coverages that we saw during this game, who's to say we don't win this game?
Right.
Right. I'm not going to,
down to the wire at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things that, even with that being said, we lost to a team that is, by a lot of standards, potentially be in the AFC Championship game, and that game wasn't decided until late in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And so there's nothing to hold our heads. I know there's a lot of people saying there's no more victories, and I get that. A loss is a loss, but you can lose a game and get blown out, right? Like the Dallas Cowboys did today.
Yeah.
Or you can lose a game. Say it again, Ken.
Cowboys.
That's right. Or you can just simply lose a game by a touchdown and feel good about how you're going throughout this season. So I'm not upset about it, man. I'm very pleased with where this team is heading after 6 games into the season, man.
Yeah, and I'll go over a few of the stats here, and they kind of, to me, they kind of tell the good and the bad of the
Okay.
game. Jaden Daniels was 25 for 35. I think for some
Okay.
reason now that I said that, it seems like that wasn't right. But I've got 25 for 35. When I looked it up, he was at 68 or 69% completion rate. By Jaden's standards, that's a little bit low. But for had two touchdowns, but I mean very efficient, right? In the NFL, throwing 69%, two touchdowns, no interceptions is efficient from a passing perspective. And with that, he spread the ball around. Zach, Noah, Terry, and Austin Eckler, they all had 47 yards or more. Right. So he was spreading the ball around. Everybody was getting it. That was at 68, 58, 53, and 57 yards. So you had four people that averaged 50 to 55 yards. I mean, probably about 55 yards a person. So the ball was getting around. There was a couple. I mean, these numbers will look better, but there was a couple dropped passes. I think Noah had one, and I think Zach had one as well.
Okay.
And so you put that in, and these are both of I think both of them were first downs. It would have picked up the first down with that catch. And so it kind of comes into play that I know people are going to drop balls throughout an entire season of the NFL, but when you have a rookie quarterback, man, you need to minimize that, especially if they're fairly easy catches. And so that was that. From a running perspective, Washington only had 52 yards for the entire day, 52, and Jaden had 22 of those. So that means our running backs had 30 yards.
And keep in mind, we were the second highest rushing team in the league behind the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
All right. And for us to be held to 52 yards rushing as an offense was, again, quite different from where we had been all season. Um, I know you were trying to run down some stats there, but I just kind of want to jump in there and kind of point that out, man,
Yeah.
that
Well,
was a big difference in the game.
well, I think those stats kind of show that while their offensive line didn't necessarily dominate us, it controlled, right? It controlled, so we didn't get a good running game going, because that changes a lot of things when you have an efficient running game. You don't have to have an explosive running game, but if we would have even had double that many yards, if we would have been in the 100-yard range, there's been some games where we've been 150 plus on a few games, right? But if you're even in the 100, 107 yards, including Jaden Daniels running, that's some efficiency that you're having there. But they control that, and they kept Jaden in the pocket. So his running overall was, even on some designed runs, he was picking up no yards or 5 yards, 2 yards. So I mean, you got to give them credit for the game plan that they put together. They do have, while their defense isn't the best in the NFL by any means, compared to some past years, their defensive line is their strength. And their defensive line is, I think their defensive line, even though their offense was efficient, I think their defensive line is why they won the game today from
Well,
Baltimore perspective.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm gonna disagree slightly, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
We put up 23 points, and in my opinion, we probably would have had 26 if it wasn't for the blocked field goal.
Right.
26 points against the Baltimore Ravens. I feel pretty good about that, given where we are in our rebuild. Right.
Right.
To me, this game was lost due to shades of our old defense. And I know that the defense wasn't the sole reason we lost the game, but they stood out. It's kind of one of those things where when you're watching something stands out. For example, today, St. Juice stood out, right? We've not seen his name called all year, which everyone was saying, man, he's having a solid year. and he is. But today he stood out. He stood out for the wrong reason because he didn't have a great game.
Right.
Right. I will say that one of those PIs where Bateman slipped as he was trying to come out of his break.
Yeah.
They called PI on him, but nonetheless, he stood out because he seemed to struggle. And our defense is that way. We had no answer somehow for Zay Flowers. The guy had 130 yards, I think, in the first half. Right. We talked about the miscommunication where guys are running wide open. Whether we were playing zone or playing man, they seem to be able to move the ball up and down the field at will on us, right? So
Right.
did the defense overall have a terrible day? No. But when you're playing a team or an offense as good as the Baltimore Ravens, it stood out. Those things stood out. And maybe when we played some of the other teams, our offense was able to overcome that because remember, we were one of the highest scoring offense. The offense of Jayden Daniels and crew was able to overcome some of the deficiencies of the defense, whereas today they were not.
Correct.
It stood out. We saw the missed tackling. We saw the again wide open busted coverages and things of that nature, and that all showed up. And if they had played a little bit better, who's to say that the results of the game would not have been different, right? And again, because I know the final score was 23 by us, but man, that guy was lucky enough to get that tip and on that field goal, and that stopped it because I think the kicker would have made that 52-yard field goal, and we
Yeah.
just put 26 points on these guys.
And I'll go over some of the stats for the Ravens. I mean, when you look at the numbers, I know the Ravens were efficient, but it didn't seem like the numbers that I'm going to put out here. It was this bad. The numbers make it look a whole lot worse than what it felt like. Right. They had almost 500 yards total offense, 484, 308 passing, 176 yards rushing. A lot of that was in the second half when they got the lead and they just started feeding Derrick Henry. Obviously,
Let me give you a stat to that. You said they had almost 500 yards rushing, right?
Yep.
And I saw this stat that said Baltimore averaged 7.6 yards per play.
Yep.
Right. That was the most in a game all season that they've had. Washington defensively all season have been giving up 5.7 yards. So you're talking almost 2 yards more per play.
Right.
And the 484 yards the 484 yards given to Baltimore by our defense was the most we had allowed all season. Right. So again, going back to on the defensive side of the ball, this was one of those games where it stood out. It stood out a little bit of where we are lacking on the defensive side of the ball, right?
Right.
But go ahead with some of your stuff.
Oh no, that was kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, Derrick Henry had a good day at 132 yards, and Lamar Jackson had 40 yards. And a couple of those were, were some back breaking runs. Where he extended. I think he probably got 40 of those yards in like 3 plays, and the other 7 or 8 plays he picked up a yard or he lost, a half a yard or whatever. But that's what everybody has to deal with. When you play the Ravens, right? You've got a two-headed monster there. Derrick Henry will run you over like a school bus, and then you got Lamar that's he's a crafty. I mean, he's fast, but he's a crafty runner. The way he runs, he's not. I know he's a different kind of runner. And to have to try to deal with both of those from a linebacker, whether you bite on the handoff, or if you don't bite on the handoff, well then Derrick Henry has one less person that he's got to run through or run over. I mean, they've got a tough running game to deal with, and Washington's not the first ones that have had to deal with that this year. But I think one of the things that I think Washington could do to clean up just on their own was the penalties. We were inside the 10-yard line on 2 different occasions and had illegal motion again. This is, again, going back to Tampa Bay, where I think with Tampa Bay, it seemed like every time we got inside the red zone, there was a penalty. I think on one of the occasions we did score a touchdown. I think on the other one we ended up getting a field goal. But you just cannot do that in the red zone. And then from a third down perspective, they were 6 of 10, 60% on third down. And out of those 6, I think at least 4 of them had to be 8 yards or more. Right. You had them third and long, right where you would typically want them. And you let them get away with it. It's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1. You can understand it, but they had at least 3, if not 4, probably 4 of them were 3rd and 8+ yards. So,
Well, that goes back to the point that I was making about how this defense today looked like shades of the old defense a little to some degree. Right. Not as bad, but certainly some of the things that we all was frustrated about, unable to, blown assignments, unable to get off the field on third down and things. But I will say this, in defense of our defense, is that this game today was a mirror image of who we are. Watching us put Baltimore in 3rd and long and Lamar Jackson able to get a first down, right? Well, that's what Jayton's been doing all year, right? Having a strong running game. Well, that's what we've had all year.
Right.
So our defense got a little bit of dose of what our offense have been doing to opposing defenses the past few weeks as well. And so it was kind of a splitting image of who we are. But that being said, one more example of that was twice where Tress Way punted the ball and pinned Baltimore within around the 10-yard line. And twice, not once, but twice, Baltimore was able to drive 90+ yards down the field and score. I think once or twice they were helped by, some penalties and things of that nature. But still, you're talking ball control, time of possession, wearing your defensive out, long drives, and they got touchdowns at the end of both of those drives. Those are backbreakers.
Yeah.
Right. And those are things that we were doing as an offense. Since the Giants game where we scored all field goals, that's what we were doing. Cincinnati, Arizona, right? Those are the type of things that we were doing to teams, or I should say even with the Giants, with the exception of getting the touchdowns, but we moved the ball up and down the field between the 20s on the Giants. And so for 3 consecutive weeks, that's what we were doing. And it was done to us today, and I didn't like it. But that being said, we still only lost this game by 7 points, where our defense not playing its best. So, again, no more victories. That's cool, but I like what I saw.
Yeah, and it's, again, I think it's one of the things where whether it's this year or coming into next season, and we got a lot of games this year, right? I think, a couple players, a couple adjustments, and B-Rob hopefully isn't gone for very long. And even the way we played today in the loss, if we can play like that every game the rest of the year, we're gonna win more than we're gonna lose.
Agreed.
Right. And that's really, as a coach, you go in and go, hey, today they were better. Yeah. Right. We got some things to clean up. Keep doing this, because next week we're going to get a win. The next week after that, we think we're going to get a win. The next week after that, we think we can win every single game the rest of the year the way we're playing. Now it's just a matter of executing and not shooting ourselves in the foot on 3 to 5 plays a game, and see how the season rolls.
Right. And to that point, right, we talked about it at the bar today, that coming into this game, there were 12 games remaining on our schedule. Okay. And with that being the case, we were 4-1 with 12 games left to go.
Yep.
And if we as a team play 500 ball and go 6-6 the rest of the season, that makes you 10-7.
That's a
We
playoff
finished.
team.
That's probably division winner, playoff, wild card at a minimum. And if this team continues to play the way we've seen them play, which I have no reason to believe otherwise, then I think we'll be at least a 500 ball club minimum.
Yes. Yeah.
So if that's the case, man, one game, you're not going to win them all, right? That hadn't
Correct.
happened since 1972,
Right.
right? So they're not going to win them all. And so if we go 500 or better, yeah, I'm not too concerned, man. And we don't want to look too far ahead, but we have Carolina, the Bears, and the Giants over the next three weeks. You go 2-1, right? Over the next two, and you're what, 7-2?
Yeah.
Well, no, 6-2.
Yeah.
If
At
my
roughly the
math is
halfway
right,
point. Yeah.
yeah. If you told me before the season started we'd be 6-2 over the next, at the halfway mark of the season, I'd take that all day, every day.
And Vegas had the under over at 6.5 games, and you're halfway through the season and you're already at 6. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
no crying over here, man. No
Yeah,
crying over here on this side.
the needle is definitely pointing up for Washington, even with this loss. Like I said, there are a lot of things that they did right. Jaden was still accurate. Like I said, a couple passes that were dropped. He threw away. I can remember 2 passes that he threw away. When you put those into account, his average from an accuracy perspective, goes up even more. And I know there's other quarterbacks can say, that throw them away and that affects it. And I understand that. But he's the real deal. You listen to anybody around the NFL, you watch him with your own eyes. The progression that he has made from week 1 to now is a continual growth. And let's be real, it's the great quarterbacks, they thrive off of a loss, right? You you get refocused after a loss. You keep on winning, and hey, you don't want to lose. You don't want that to have to refocus you. But when you ever hear the great quarterbacks, a lot of times they remember the losses more than they remember the wins.
Yep.
And I think that's what Jaden Daniels is made of. He'll be back in, bright and early in the morning, looking at film of what he did right and what he did wrong, where he may have missed some opportunities, and work hard to clean that up. So, again, the needle is headed in the right direction for Washington without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, I know you're kind of a stat guy, Ken, so I'm gonna give you a little needle stat, right?
Okay.
Lamar Jackson, since he's been in the league, is 22-1 against NFC quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't look to see who that one he lost to,
Right.
but he's 22-1 against NFC quarterbacks in his career.
Yeah, I heard that before the game. That he was 21-1, and the commentators were like, "Well, most of the NFC teams only face him once every 4 years, right? So it's a different game plan that you have to put together for Baltimore and the way that they attack and the way they run the ball. So they are a unique team on the way they do it. Sometimes the uniqueness of a team is throwing the ball every which way, right? Some kind of Air Coryell type of offense. This is the opposite. This is old school. We're just going to run and pound it, and doing it with a quarterback as well as a strong running back that they've traditionally always had. And so it's tough to face, man.
Yeah. Well, they play an NFC style of ball over on the AFC side of the conference. And,
Correct.
But again, 22-1 is still 22-1, no matter how you slice it,
without a doubt.
And that's an impressive stat.
Another stat: Washington is perfect on the year on 4th downs.
Really?
I believe they are 9 for 9 or 10 for 10 on 4th downs. We had 1 4th down today. picked it up, picked up the first down on fourth down. And I believe that we are perfect for the year. And it's not just one or two. We know that we've gone for it on several occasions at fourth down, 4th and 4, 4th and 1, whatever it is. We have not picked up first down, double negative there so far this year. So
okay, all right. Well, needless to say, man, we didn't get the victory. But not in my world, not all is lost after today. And again, I will say this all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. A Cowboy loss always make the day a little bit better. And man, let me tell you that, because we try to keep it a little bit clean on here, man. But that butt whooping that the Detroit Lions put on the Cowboys today on Jerry's birthday. Ooh. And the thing about it, Ken, is they have a bye week.
Oh, they get to chew on this.
So the media and the fans get to deal with this loss for 2 weeks, right?
Oh man.
And so listen, I understand. So if any Cowboy fans that are listening, and any that I'm going to run into, I don't want to hear no excuses about all the injuries you had on defense, because I will give you that as to the reason Detroit put up as many points. But what I'm going to want you to explain to me, though, is the high-priced players you have on the offensive side of your ball only managed 9 points.
Yeah.
Win or lose, you should have scored more than 9 points. I don't know how many interceptions Dak
Without
threw.
a doubt.
You got CeeDee Lamb. You got all of that on the offense. Dak's making $180 million a year. Y'all put up 9 points. And again, even if you had lost 30 to 35, 35 to 40, I could say, well, you know what, man? They had a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. But your offense put up 9. That is not where all your injuries are.
Well,
So
and throw onto that, if there's any Philly fans, man, they were down to the wire against Cleveland that we just got finished putting a butt whooping to, laid out a plan of here's how you beat them, right? And it was down to the wire. I mean, it was down to I think the score was it 20 to 15?
2016 or something like that.
2016. Yeah. I mean, it was less than a touchdown.
And look, and I will say, even with that, man, with the loss today and the Cowboys losing, we are still sitting in sole possession of first place.
Yep.
And so I'll take it. I'll take it, man. Again, all things are good in this world. All things are good in this world, man. So we're on to Carolina, I guess, right?
Yep. And here, within the next couple days here, we will do an evaluation and a game plan of what it's going to take for Washington to get back in the win column, and put out a podcast covering that. But Reg, you got anything else?
That's all I got, man. That's all
I got. I appreciate everybody's listening. I appreciate everybody's interaction with us, whether it's through the podcast or mainly through Twitters, where most people reach us. Scrolling across the bottom there is our Twitter handle. If you're just listening to this, you can reach us on Twitter at two knuckleheads. That's DA two knuckleheads. Reg and I are the two knuckleheads. So hit us up, follow us, and let us know what you think. Until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out, y'all.